Hey YouTubers, this is a quick review on what it took to get a excess rear sight and HIVIZ front sight to work for point of aim, point of impact on my Stoeger M3k shotgun. I'm very happy with it. I've been running the HIVIZ front sight for quite some time, which is why I opted to stay with it and also run the excess rear sight. So hopefully you guys get a little bit of useful information out of this, and just remember, every shotgun's different. This isn't going to work exactly with every other shotgun. I mean, it's going to be very similar to other Stoeger m3000s and m3ks, so you can use this formula. All right, guys, got my shotgun tuned in. I'm going to see if I can hit a 5-inch target at 50 yards with my new rear sight. Okay, so this is the HIVIZ Fiber-Optic front sight. Their part number is PM1002. I was able to purchase it for just under $28 on Amazon Prime and even got next day shipping for free. So that was a great deal. It comes with the removal key for replacing the light tube inside of the actual sight itself. Comes with 8 different light tubes. I have 4 green ones. They're all of various sizes. I have 1 single white one and then 3 red ones of various sizes as well. I really like the sight itself. It has a single mounting point screw right under here, which you remove your factory fiber optic front sight, and you can go ahead, or even just a regular bead sight, and they come with 7 or 8 different adapting screws, so that way you have the correct thread pattern to mount this in. Now once you get this mounted in, you are going to want to Loctite it. It is a shotgun, it will vibrate loose, and you don't want your sight swinging from side to side since this is a single attachment point. The good thing about that being a single attachment point is that you can adjust it side to side to get the right point of aim, point of impact. Now I had to move it very little bit once I had my rear sight mounted and got it adjusted, and then after that I Loctited it in while I was at the range and knew exactly where I wanted it to be. This front shotgun sight is a great standalone sight even if you don't have a rear sight to go with it. And the reason I say that is because the different light tube diameters on the heads are actually going to help you with elevation. If you're having slugs that are shooting high, maybe you're running a larger fiber optic, and getting a smaller fiber optic in there is actually going to help you to bury that sight down a little bit, bringing your muzzle down, which is also going to bring your point of impact down. So that's something you're going to want to think about. I also run the smallest sight because of the aim small, miss small theory. It's a lot easier to see something at 100 yards when you can actually see the target around your front sight. Okay, so installing a rear shotgun sight is not the easiest chore. There's 2 ways of going about doing it. You can have somebody with a mill go ahead and mill out a dovetail section for a dovetail rear sight, and then you can install what I have here as the excess rear sight, or you can install a flip down 1022 rear sight. The problem I've heard with the 1022s is that the sight itself doesn't necessarily go low enough, so I hear that a lot of people grind the center down to get their right elevation on their shots. But the luxury of it is it does flip down and out of the way. I personally have never found the excess rear sight to be inconvenient or cause me any problems when I'm trying to run close targets. I really don't even notice it until I go to look for it because of the distance between the front sight and the rear sight. It's not really something that bothers me. Now, the second way to do it is to go ahead and hand file it down. That's the risky way of doing it. You can ruin your barrel, or you can just have a really ugly notch back there, and if I see you, I'll probably make fun of you knowing that you attempted to put in the rear sight and made it too big or crooked or had a hard time with it. However, there is several guys that I've met that have done it and have done a great job. I have nothing against it if you can do it. I will help you out and give you the information that a new 24-inch Stoeger m3000 or m3k barrel is going to be about $205. So you're going to want to decide if it's worth running the risk for it or not. Some of the information is not all out there. Some guys have mills themselves or machinist friends, but don't necessarily have the information of how deep to cut the sight or where exactly to cut the sight. So for most shotguns, it's going to be a pretty solid rule of thumb that you're going to get a dovetail cutter that's 250 thousandths with 60 degrees on it, and you're going to want to get HSS, high-speed steel, and the depth that you're going to want to cut into the rail up here is going to want to be 50 thousandths is what industry standard is. However, if you talk to excess sites, they like to hear people start out at 45 thousandths and then make their way bigger if they need to. They prefer to get the site as tight as they can. So I suggest starting out with 45 thousandths and then making your way up. Now, the good thing about these sights is they do have a white dot in the back. However, you can drift them to get the proper point of aim, point of impact. So you may need to drift a little bit more than you're comfortable with moving the sight over. So when I originally installed mine, I had the white dot was past my actual rail up there, and I wasn't really happy with it. I thought it was ugly, and it kind of threw me off as I was shooting as well. So what I needed to do was I actually cheated my HIVIZ front sight the opposite direction, so that way I could get that back into the center. And I was able to pull it off and make it work. So now when I refer to cheating the front and rear sight over to get a proper point of aim, point of impact, like I was saying, that if your white dot is past your rib on the shotgun up here, then you might not be comfortable with it, as I wasn't. So what I did was I took the front sight up here and moved it over this direction, so that way I could bring this rear sight back over towards the center, and I was able to get it lined up pretty well. So point of aim, point of impact is dead on at 50 yards and 100 yards for me. I'm pretty good with it. I'm able to hit an 8-inch piece of steel at 100 yards and a 5-inch piece of steel at 50 yards. I'm pretty happy with that, and that's using the Fiocchi low recoil slugs as well. Okay, excess rear sights. They make a complete front and rear sight kit. However, I had already owned the HIVIZ front sight and I liked it. I was very comfortable with it and I wanted to keep it. So I called HIVIZ on the phone, or I'm sorry, I called Excess Rear Sights on the phone, and I picked up a 90 thousandths height rear sight for a shotgun. Now, I would recommend either a 70 thousandths or a 90 thousandths if you're going to be running the HIVIZ front sight, because it is so low down to the rib. Now for Excess's sights, for their sight kit for the front and rear, you're also going to need to dovetail the front, which some shooters do as well, just because they want to be able to get their elevation better. Instead of just adjusting the rod right there, they want to drift it and drift the front to make up that difference, which is helpful. I've also seen some shotguns mounted and fitted with a pistol front rear sight, like a Caspian pistol front sight. That can be done as well, just different options. The problem is with shotguns is that everybody's shotgun is a little bit different, so unless you're buying someone's specific sights set up for a specific gun, you could have point of aim, point of impact problems. And I've even done this before, and I've known several other guys that have done this before and actually have to have their barrels bent to meet up with the point of aim and point of impact of their shots, where they're actually aiming and where their shots are actually landing, to get them to be one. And another company that can do that is Terran Tactical. You can send them your shotgun if it's Benelli, and they will take care of it for you, no problems. I think they even are doing Stoegers as well.